Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codispoti, and today's guest is Shawn Harrs, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Red Lobster. They are the world's largest and most beloved seafood restaurant company, committed to sourcing sustainable and traceable seafood while serving high-quality dishes at great value. Shawn has played a crucial role at Red Lobster, overseeing IT strategy and modernizing the brand's digital experiences. He's facilitated the company's M&A and integrated enterprise systems while achieving impressive returns on technology investments. For example, a 2x ROI from online ordering upgrades, a 10x ROI from migrating analytics to the cloud, and a 2x year-over-year sales growth through the My Red Lobster Rewards program. Now, before joining Red Lobster, Shawn led transformational initiatives at companies like Y-Green Energy Fund and Vital Pharmaceuticals, shaping his expertise across financial services and entertainment sectors. His passion for innovation and technology transformation has helped Red Lobster enhance the guest experience and drive sustainable growth. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefits.com. All right, back to our guest today, the CIO and Executive Vice President of Red Lobster, Shawn Harrs. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Anthony, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me, and very excited to be able to share a little bit about my story with your audience.
All right, well, let's jump into it. So your role as CIO at Red Lobster today isn't your first work experience in the hospitality industry. Tell us about your other hospitality work experiences and how that prepared you for this role today.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. My first job out of college was with Walt Disney Parks and Resorts. I started there as an engineer, and I spent about 15 years at Disney. During that time, I had several roles in several functional areas within the company. And I think that really shaped my view of how each function contributes to the guest experience across all different kinds of touch points. And at Disney, we used to say no one owns the guest experience, but every one functional area owns the guest experience at one given moment. And so having that ability to see the entire guest experience from the view of every different functional area in the company was very formative in terms of my career. But even before then, I grew up in the island nation of Barbados. Barbados is known for its welcoming culture of hospitality. And so when I joined Disney and having had that, experience growing up there, that really got me out of the gates ready to fully understand what it meant to shape hospitality, every day.
And so, you were in technology roles, I'm assuming, at Walt Disney World. Is that right?
Various technology roles, engineering, IT, but also in business departments, marketing, operations, legal, finance. So I didn't start my career, and I didn't spend actually very much of those 15 years, 2 years in total in IT. They were all in other sort of non-IT departments, but IT adjacent, if you will.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Whether it's right or wrong, like we think of IT, we think of sort of, being back behind, a server wall and, being sort of ensconced in just zeros and ones. And so I was going to ask about how you sort of came to embrace so much of that customer first mantra that came from Disney, but it sounds like you moved around into lots of different areas. And so you had sort of a 360 exposure to what was going on there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also helped me learn about, what in many cases, these functional areas do. I wasn't, these were early sort of formative years, pre-executive roles where I had an opportunity to also, working in a large company, see the span and scope of what an excellent functional, capability looks like. I mean, if there's anything that Disney does, is their focus on absolutely being excellent at everything. So if you're working in operations or legal or finance or supply chain management, you're working with the most talented, experienced people in any given industry. The talent that they're able to attract is quite remarkable.
And so that leads us to, how was it that the opportunity for Red Lobster came about for you? How is it that they were able to recruit such amazing talent from the Disney folks?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, I transitioned out of financial services. That was my last role with the Y-Green Energy Fund, was my second head of IT role. And, in the time that I got introduced to Red Lobster as they were looking for a new head of IT, I had conversations with what is now my peer group, with the CEO, with the board of directors. And I'd say that all of the experiences I had along my career up to this point prepared me, similarly to what I mentioned earlier on in viewing the guest experience. Every stakeholder in that interview journey had a different point of view in terms of what they wanted or needed from the role, the type of leadership, the type of executive thinking, strategic thinking, tactical execution that was sort of going to lead to their decision making on me being the right fit for this role. So my experience in my career helped me prepare for that interview process. And I was very excited when I got this role a little over 2 years ago.
So many of our listeners will know that Red Lobster filed for Chapter 11, which is the reorganization form of bankruptcy. And as I understand it, you started working there just before this restructuring became necessary. Can you kind of walk us through the pivotal moments when you realized that change was inevitable, and maybe how you navigated some of those early challenges to keep the company on course?
Yeah, I mean, if there's been anything that's been a constant in my career, it's working with change. So one of the key things that you'll read about that we were facing as a challenge was attracting guests into the restaurants. And so we introduced a product that ended up being, not as profitable as we wanted it to be. Yes, it did bring guests back to get reintroduced to Red Lobster, new guests that hadn't experienced Red Lobster before, but it wasn't a profitable product, and it wasn't yielding from a revenue perspective what we were looking for. And so that was towards the tail end of my first year. And then a restructuring became necessary. And we realized that the path forward was going to be, financially restructuring, but also restructuring our product. And that is now what we're underway with.
So what was that product that was sort of successful in bringing people back in, but not profitable, so ultimately had to be removed?
It's the $20 all-you-can-eat shrimp. And, we had a great variety. It was a great product in terms of guest satisfaction. But then from a profitability perspective, it wasn't as successful in terms of what we were looking for.
Okay, so a positive learning experience that you can take away from that. So something we tried, it didn't work. Now, how do we pivot? What were some of the new promotional strategies that you guys decided to try?
Yeah, coming out of that now, under our new leadership, our new ownership, and a new executive leadership team, with our new CEO, our focus is on really a more well-rounded versus a single product sort of attraction for guests. The things that guests are really have continued to come to Red Lobster for, like Lobster Fest or Crab Fest, those limited time offerings. But then for every day, having a menu and other offerings that are exciting and enticing to make our guests want to visit us more frequently. And so our approach versus a single product strategy is more of a well-rounded strategy now.
So kind of walk us through what, I've got really fond memories of Red Lobster as a little kid. There was one close to my dad's office, and I don't know, once every few months we would meet him there after work. And this was a nice dinner out for everybody. And I got the popcorn shrimp and the hush puppies. But now it's been years since I've been back. What would somebody experience today as they go into Red Lobster? Yeah. What's the customer experience like now?
Yeah, our focus is on two things. On hospitality, we want to be exemplary at the guest experience, hospitality first. And then from a product offering, and you mentioned hush puppies, we're introducing favorites of our guests that we're bringing them back. So hush puppies are back, lobster rolls are back. Our menu has really been modernized. We're introducing things like everyday happy hours have been introduced. So we're rolling out the red carpet for our guests and giving them, inviting them to come and experience the Red Lobster that they may know from the past and that they were fond of, and experience it again in a new way, and also attract new guests to become loyal customers of ours.
So how did you decide? Obviously, prior to you, there had been decisions made to get rid of some items that had been on the menu. How did you decide which items to bring back? Was there some sort of a polling or a survey of customers that said, hey, these are our favorites?
Yeah, I mean, you want to have a menu mix that, when someone comes to the restaurant and they sit down, they may not necessarily know exactly what they're coming into Red Lobster to have that day. You want to have an exciting menu mix that will fulfill someone's desire for what they're feeling like having in the moment. And that's really what hospitality is all about. It's how you make the guest feel. So we want to have a menu mix that will give our guests, that feel-good experience about what it is they're able to select and choose. And sometimes there are things that were, less of a fan favorite that don't add to that feel-good mix that's on a menu. And in the restaurant industry, that's what companies are doing, from time to time. Things appear and disappear from menus over time.
Mm. I've heard you mention before about wanting Red Lobster to be America's everyday restaurant. Mm-hmm. What specific innovations or enhancements are you most excited about that are going to encourage more of those frequent casual visits?
Yeah. Last November, we introduced happy hour. So there's that, every day after work, group of folks from the office, or they've, after their pickleball group, and they're going to come into Red Lobster and just have that fun experience at the bar. We've got a revised lunch menu. So you're having a business lunch, or you're going out with some work colleagues to celebrate one of your team members' birthdays or company anniversaries. We're introducing offerings that will give our guests opportunities to think about Red Lobster beyond the big birthday celebrations, the big Mother's Day, the monthly visit to the restaurant, to have the opportunity for us to be thought of in a more diverse way and visit us more often.
So maybe in the past, people viewed Red Lobster as the special occasion, once in a while, once every, kind of like I talked about as a kid. It was like once every few months, maybe we got to do it. And now sort of positioning the customer experience in the menu so that it's more of a, maybe not everyday affair, but certainly more regular.
Yeah, you can come and celebrate those big events with us, birthdays, anniversaries, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day. But in between, you can come and celebrate with us on a date night. You can come with your group or even individually to enjoy happy hour. You can come during the lunch period, and that just creates an invitation to experience more often.
Yeah, I'm checking out your menu online here. Lots of good looking stuff. We just happen to be recording this on a Thursday, and I see the specials for Thursday: shrimp linguine Alfredo and Cajun chicken linguine Alfredo. So it's not just seafood.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to earlier on about that feel good menu mix where, Thursdays is from a lunch special perspective. It's Italian day at Red Lobster. Yes, obviously there's seafood on there. We're leading with shrimp. That's what we're known for, but it's an Italian sort of forward lunch offering. So maybe your group at the office is, let's do Italian Thursdays at Red Lobster.
I like that. And maybe one of the reasons as I'm thinking about this that I haven't been back is half of my family doesn't care for seafood. Myself and my oldest son, we love it. But my wife and my youngest son, not so much. Knowing that there are non-seafood options, opens this up to be something that we put onto our to-do list.
Absolutely. We've got great steaks. We've got great burgers. We've got great non-red meat options. There's, like I said, a great mix of menu offerings to offer anyone what they're really looking for in that moment.
And I also see, linked up the menu page here, you've got an allergen list. So people can look at every single item on the menu and it tells you, does it have soy or egg or dairy or wheat and so that can be really helpful for, folks who have, particular dietary restrictions too.
Yeah, that's one of the ways that we're very hospitality guest forward. We want our guests to know what they're going to experience and be very open about it. That's really part of our promise in terms of hospitality.
So Shawn, we mentioned a little bit in the intro, one of your major achievements has been modernizing Red Lobster's online ordering and digital experiences with rather impressive ROI. What do you think made these particular digital initiatives so successful in driving customer engagement and growth?
We took a lot of, and I joined sort of after that, but as a company, we took a lot of what we learned in really shifting heavily to online ordering during the pandemic. And we took those learnings in terms of what the guest was looking for in an online experience. As we continued, we were welcoming guests back into the restaurant, but a lot of the population, especially a younger generation, has gotten accustomed to thinking about ordering from a restaurant during the week. We're going to, I'm hungry, I'm going to order something online. And so we have a multi-pronged approach to our digital presence, our online ordering site, the ability to call and speak to a human and put in an online order, or working through one of our third-party partners, where you can go on their mobile app and order from us. We really took a lot of what we learned during the pandemic and use that to modernize our online ordering experience.
And so it's just more customer friendly, user friendly, just more streamlined, easier to kind of find what you need.
Yeah. And also the partnerships that we have then on delivery, how we package it, how we think about making sure that what arrives at your home is as close to as fresh as it would be if it had just come out of the kitchen to the table.
Mm-hmm. I've heard from some others in the space that the process of updating the technology, these ordering apps and whatnot, it's sort of like an ongoing process. It's not like here it is, we're done, we've arrived.
Mhm.
Like they're talking about like, once every 18 months to 3 years, they're having to completely redo the whole platform. Are you finding this as well?
Yeah, I mean the pace of, I mean, I'm not even going to talk about what's happened in the last 2 years around AI, but the way the web and mobile apps have evolved over the last 20 years since, the early days of e-commerce and online ordering, the expectations of customers for ease of use. You think of the big brands out there that make it very, very easy to order online, make it very easy to know what you're going to get and when, and have that consistency. You need to be constantly looking at the marketplace. So it's really not just a technology driven redoing of those experiences. It's that every 12 months to 18 months, customer expectations evolve because the entire economy is introducing new experiences. And customers then sort of gravitate to that. And that then becomes sort of a de facto expectation for anything else in their world. So voice ordering or voice commands, that is very prevalent today. I referenced AI. Right now, it's sort of with AI anticipating what it is that I will want in a moment is sort of where AI is now leading. So we're going to see a lot of that in the next 18 months in terms of AI anticipating what you will want, whether it's to know something or to get something, and it will transition beyond, just the time dimension. It'll be 4-dimensional. It'll also be spatial. So it's going to be where you are and when you are that AI will know what you will be looking for in a given moment.
Can you give a specific example of that? Like, how is AI going to know like what it is I want before I know?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We all obviously offer through our use of technology a lot of data. So we are volunteering a lot of our behavioral needs and traits to these digital platforms. So suggestive marketing has very often been sort of a time dimension wise in the moment. Here's an offer for a discount on a particular product that you generally might enjoy at this moment in time, or maybe we're incentivizing you to come in when you otherwise wouldn't have. So that's an additional visit. But what it very often does not know is, you know what? I'm a half hour away from your closest location. And so maybe that's not the best offer for me right now. Or, maybe it's a cruise. Well, you know what? I've used up all my vacation this year already. So there's a spatial dimension to it where, hey, I'm driving by that coffee shop, and combining that proximity to this moment in time when the AI knows that you would be very willing to come in if you had the right offer. The combination of those two will really make for a very powerful guest experience in the digital space.
So if I'm connecting the dots on what you're saying, it's probably not only analyzing sort of my past behavior to see what my tendencies have been, but maybe also kind of creating avatar buckets. So it's like, oh, you sort of match the purchasing behaviors of this group of people, and they tend to really like happy hour on Tuesday. And so we're going to, even though maybe I've never come to Tuesday happy hour, it's going to say, hey, here's the happy hour special on Tuesday. Come see us.
The capabilities of AI are going to be so unique to your persona. It's going to transcend what traditionally, historically, and up till very recently have been lookalikes. So your behavior matches a pattern of a particular group or data set that we're looking at. So we're going to tailor our offer to that. AI is going to look at you very discreetly and very individually. So in the areas of healthcare, for example, Healthcare practice in the past, when you think of for example, an insulin pump, it is reading in real time what it needs to do in terms of your current insulin level. But if you're combining that with some other wearable technology or some other way of gathering data about your current behaviors, even while your insulin levels are good, it can predict for you that, hey, you need to do something. Otherwise, in the next hour, you're going to have, the need for some insulin. And so it can look ahead and say, hey, you need to eat a banana right now, or you need to get up and go for a walk. And so AI is going to be used to really tailor an experience that's uniquely your own.
And, I think some people hear that and they get a little bit weirded out about it. Here's my take on it, and be curious to hear your perspective. It's like, well, that's just made life better for me. Like, what's the point in me getting an advertisement for all you can eat broccoli when I hate broccoli, right?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't I rather see something that's like a shrimp and hush puppy special, or, a happy hour that my wife and I can go to, something that would be relevant to me?
Yeah, I think the biggest issue I would say to consumers who have concern about their data is really around the privacy of it. How is your data, the data that is your own and uniquely your own, being protected? We have been providing data about ourselves to groups, business groups, whether it's our physicians or in schools and teachers, to our employers, for the longest time. And we've now, over the last 25 years, been voluntarily giving data to tech companies, behind a login, with the assumption that it's going to be protected. And so if the security of our data is one that we can't call into question, and I think that's an area that really needs to get stronger, because if you look at the news every day, there are very big and reputable companies. And I'll say that is a huge focus of mine. I do not compromise on the security of our company's digital and security capabilities. That's my first charge. Secondly, then bring about a great guest experience. But I can't do that without ensuring that it's secure. And that's sort of in the vein of the same promise that we make when we show on the menu what the allergens are in our food. I want to promise our guests that when they turn over their data to us, for example, in our loyalty program, that they can rest assured that data is secure.
So when you see some of these tech breaches at other large companies, knowing what you know and all the effort that you guys have put in behind the scenes at Red Lobster to secure customer data, do you see those other examples and think they just got a little sloppy?
Sometimes. This is a case, and to borrow the term, the bad guys only have to be right once. Mm-hmm. And technology is so complex, and we're introducing so many technologies into the ecosystem, and particularly of a large enterprise, is that the ability to breach and compromise, just every day there's something there. And so you have to be defensive, you have to be offensive, you can't hold your breath. I can't fault many of the companies who encounter this. But in some cases, yeah. And that's why regulations are being introduced that are going to hold companies accountable for data breaches when it was avoidable. In many cases, it isn't. There's a quote from a former FBI director. It's not a matter of whether you will be compromised, but when.
That's reassuring, huh?
Yeah,
so,
it is.
But do everything that you can to make it as hard for them as possible.
Absolutely. Every day I start out my day thinking, and not in a negative way, because I want to turn that into actionable things that will continue to build that trust with our guests and also our team members who come to work for us, is what could happen. And then I think about that, and then we work to build guardrails around it. because we want our guest experience and our digital capabilities to go fast. And to do that, I have to have those guardrails in place.
So tell me if we got this right in the intro. A 10x ROI from migrating analytics to the cloud. Is that number accurate?
That is not a made up number. You can actually, go online. There are a lot of publications out there about getting 10x value from your data. I can't take credit for that number, but that was the challenge that I put to my team when I joined the company. I said, that's the benchmark, and I could have said, let's exceed that, but I think in an organization like ours, particularly in the restaurant industry, that is a very margin-driven business, enabling data-driven decision-making is so critical. We have a lot of data. We're a company with a lot of history. We serve a lot of guests every day. We have a lot of employees. So we have a lot of data. A lot of it might not provide value. And that's the key thing, is to separate out what are really, valuable actions for the business to take versus, whack-a-mole looking at all kinds of data and not knowing what to do. And so I reshaped the data analytics team, restructured it, and made that our focus. We want to get 10x value out of our data. It's a treasure trove of information that can help every function in our organization be more effective. Operations, supply chain, human resources, all of the departments to be more effective in how we serve our guests and be profitable.
Let's pick one of those departments that you just mentioned as an example. How has this treasure trove of data helped human resources, for example?
In the human resources space, it's more effective scheduling, making sure that we have the right employees in the right positions. And it's not about having too few. You don't want to understaff either, because there's lost revenue opportunity. There's potentially a poor guest experience if you're understaffed. So, but then also in a margin-driven business, you don't want to be overstaffed. So you've got to use the data to get to the Goldilocks solution so that you're balancing cost and guest experience and revenue. And when you can take those margins of accuracy and move them from, let's say, 95% accuracy, or you're moving from 1 sigma to 2 to 3 to 4 sigma accuracy, and you're introducing AI in your forecasting, you're getting that much better at making sure you're going to have the right people in their positions to provide that great guest experience and not erode your margins.
Shawn, tell us about the My Red Lobster Rewards program. What is this?
Yeah, we have a loyalty program. I think your audience is very familiar with it from other food and beverage companies, but everything from airlines, another big area. Companies have loyalty programs, and the My Red Lobster Rewards program, as we lovingly like to call it internally, MERLR, which is what it abbreviates to.
I'm glad that's not on the commercials, though.
Yeah, no,
doesn't really roll off the tongue.
That's sort of an internal. But yeah, our rewards program offers additional incentive to, again, become that everyday restaurant that our guests visit. They're getting loyalty points for ordering online. They're getting loyalty points for visiting us in the restaurant. And those then translate in subsequent visits into discounts or, up to and including a free meal. And then on top of that, we add additional incentives like discount coupons and things like that. So we leverage that as a way to show our guests that we appreciate their loyalty. And that really sort of then creates sort of almost a perpetual motion engine for our guests through that loyalty.
And yeah, you saw a 2x year-over-year sales growth Just
Yeah,
through the program, within the
within a
program?
cohort of our loyal customers. Yeah,
All right. That's
we see
impressive.
a very high repeat visitation and loyalty from the groups that are very, that use the program a lot. And so if you're loyal to an airline, you see that a lot of benefits come from moving up in the tiers within that loyalty program. And that drives a reciprocal behavior because you want to get every year to that highest level in the program. So you're going to become loyal to that airline, even if sometimes you have to have a layover when a competing airline has a direct flight.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, Shawn. It seems to me a little bit unusual that a CIO would also carry the title of executive vice president. But like as we're talking here, it's clear to me like you're involved in a lot more than the technology and the information, because I hear you talking about lots of big picture and operational strategies.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier on my formative years in my career, having worked in all of the functional areas. So I know what it's like to sit in the in the seat of the CMO, because I've worked in the marketing department, in the HR department, in supply chain, in operations. So I know in finance, I know what those areas have to do to be successful. And they're my internal customers. So I wear that as a CIO hat, and that's how I see my role. But to your point, I also wear the hat, and I think this is the hat that I wear first, is I'm a member of the senior leadership team, and I have an opportunity to contribute to the organization's success as part of the thought partnership that as a group together with our CEO that we look to use in developing our strategies and how we execute and how we create a great hospitality and guest experience. So everything, I have an opportunity to shape that as well with my experience and not just be the tech guy.
Yeah. And in your experience, this is an unusual sort of combo. I mean, at least, so for me, most of the tech guys I've met have been tech guys. They started as tech guys, they continued as tech guys. They're really experts in tech. But that tends to be their silo. It seems to me like you've sort of camped out in all the different silos. And so you kind of have this 360 view that maybe is a little bit unusual.
And I would like to think that if I came up in my career through IT proper and sort of came up in that functional vertical, I would still have this mindset, because IT has a supporting role in an organization as well as a P&L role in terms of the digital experience for customers to help drive organizational growth. So having that lens is something that anyone that I'm mentoring in an IT function, and I'm saying, you want to get better in your career, you have to understand what it's like to work in those functional departments and look at what it is that they're needing to do. That's the best way for you to be able to support them.
Oh, that's great advice for people listening, wondering kind of, how do I level up? How can I get to be a Shawn at some point in my career? How about growth strategy? Maybe we've touched on it already, but what growth strategy has been most successful for you?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about moving around within functions. Another one has been to get myself out. I spent 15 years at Disney, and then I moved to Universal Parks and Resorts. And so after quite a bit of time and having had a couple of executive positions also then in the hospitality space, I said, how can my experience translate into doing something in another industry? So getting out of the hospitality space, there are industries where it makes sense if you're going to spend your whole career in that industry. But I found in the opportunity to join Lennar Home Building a great opportunity to learn about a different industry: supply chain management, project management, construction management, financing. all the things that Lennar does that are great, but bringing that guest experience to the home purchasing, decision making, buying process, and then also shaping the product that people were buying to add a digital experience to it, the way we had done it in the theme parks. You took a theme park that was built 50 years ago, and now it's entirely connected with mobile queues. You're not standing in line anymore. You're using wearables to, purchase your meals or charge it back to your room and, get access to your door. What Disney and Universal did in the time that I was there by introducing digital into a very legacy physical space and still maintaining that great experience, being able to take that experience and bring it about in a completely different industry, getting yourself out of that comfort of, I know everything there is to know after 18 years in hospitality, and I know what the next steps are. I know what the career trajectory in hospitality looks like. Moving laterally into another industry and having to learn everything anew, I look back on that and the difficulty of doing that, but having the courage to take that risk and say, I could fail at this, but I'm going to give it a shot, and then come out on the other side learning so much and also being successful. That's something I would definitely recommend to folks who have a great set of skills, a great set of experiences, and can find an adjacent business, industry, even startup to help themselves grow in that way.
Yeah, not only are they helping themselves grow, but they're helping the companies that they're with, sort of cross-pollinating ideas from different industries.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the greatest products and companies bring great talent in from other ways of thinking, and that diversity of thought and how to approach and tackle problems. I mean, I think about that first engineering job I had at Disney. I worked with nuclear engineers. I worked with former NASA scientists, and what better group of people to think about creating amazing theme park experiences, right? So when you get on to the Mission to Mars ride at Disney World, you really feel like you're lifting off in a rocket.
So one thing I'm curious about is, as I'm thinking about this, Red Lobster is huge, hundreds of locations, right?
545 now.
Okay, and thousands,
U.S. and Canada,
thousands of employees,
yeah,
right?
30,000.
I mean, the numbers are incredible. How, I talk to a lot of people, and the sense that I get, some places, some industries, the labor market's softening a little bit, but a lot of folks are still having a hard time recruiting and retaining staff. And given, how huge you guys are, I'm kind of curious, and I know HR isn't sort of the position that you're largely focused on, but what's sort of the approach? What's the strategy there to find folks and hold on to them?
I have to say we are and have been investing very heavily in the employee experience, and then also in my role in the digital capabilities that support HR. And so the work that my peer and that organization does with talent acquisition experience, with onboarding and training of individual contributors, of our management training program, is top in the industry. And then what we've been doing to layer on top of that to make that experience even better, particularly when you're thinking about someone who's looking for an hourly role. When college starts back, college kids are going back in the fall. They're all gonna, many of them are going to be looking for a server job. It's a big group. that we're looking for. And they're not just applying at Red Lobster, they're applying elsewhere. And, the best of them are the ones that we want to create an organizational sort of culture that makes them want to come work for us. But we can't take a week to get back to them. We want to be able to respond to our applicants and say, you know what, we value that you have considered us, that you think of us as the place where you want to come and work. We want to welcome you. We don't want them to have to feel like they have to wait for the door to open. The door should be open to them, just like it would be for a guest in the restaurant. And so from our apply to hire process, just making that so much simpler, leveraging technology to make it easy for them to be notified that we'd like to meet with them to screen, and just replying with a text message, here's my availability, using machine learning or AI to review resumes and get a good understanding of what an applicant's experience is like, so that our talent acquisition team can look at a resume and have intelligence sitting side by side, so they're more easily and readily prepared to meet with an applicant.
They kind of got a resume there and sort of the tool on the side that say, hey, why don't you ask them some of these questions?
And just getting them through that whole process. If they're coming to work for us for the first time, getting all of their work authorization information, and, it can be very cumbersome, getting a job and getting all this paperwork together, and the manager in the restaurant has a bunch of other things to do. So making that experience using technology easy, seamless, and cutting that timeline between when someone says, you know what, I want to go work for Red Lobster, I'm going to apply there, and make it fast, seamless, easy for them to get from an application through the screening, through the interview, and getting placed into their position, and to start giving them shifts. We have significantly reduced our open headcount and our turnover numbers.
That's impressive. So not only are you using tech to sort of help with that screening and interviewing process, but once the decision's been made to hire the employee, they're able to do a lot of that sort of paperwork and that onboarding digitally. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Where do we want to go next? What's a tool, piece of software, or maybe even just like a framework that's attributed to your own success? Maybe other people listening are like, oh, that's something I'd be interested in checking out.
Yeah. One of my, and gosh, this was like straight out of college, very early computer engineering problems that I was given at Disney, was to take data off of the theme park rides and make it available to the mechanics and engineers who had to do troubleshooting. And this is before Wi-Fi, before Bluetooth. How do you capture that data and make it available? So I was building software tools that would enable them to get that data and very easily run it through a program to do a root cause analysis on some kind of a failure, because they did have sensors on these rides, but how do you get at the data and how do you make sense of it? We take a lot of that for granted, obviously, today with IoT and, near field communication, Bluetooth, and all of that. That data streams into computers today. That didn't exist when I first graduated. And so starting out as a computer engineer, and working on these embedded systems, the key thing that added value to the business here was analyzing data. And so after a couple of years, my first job in IT, I got asked to join the IT organization, was to help them with their data platforms and help get them stable. I was working on what I was told at the time by our partners of the company, that it was the largest data warehouse of its kind in their company, big big, before the term big data actually existed. But it's a big data platform company. And I brought that engineering mindset, and that's what they wanted. They couldn't figure it out internally. Engineers are, very, very focused on quality, on reliability, on uptime, on, just making sure things work. And I brought that mindset. But again, the outcome and the value for the business was the availability of data. So my career got then in many of the roles, actually, I'd say most of the roles, my success was about getting value out of data. And as my roles proceed, subsequently I took on broader spans of control. Certainly once I got into my first, second, and now third CIO roles, I have responsibility for everything from IT security through IT operations and everything in between. But the area that I gravitate towards the most is getting value out of data and how we use it. Data resiliency, disaster recovery, making sure transactional systems are up and reliable and working so that the data is available. People can clock in. Our customers can make payments securely. All of my success, I would say, or at least the areas that I found the most interest in have been around data and data platforms.
How often do you find that data doesn't lead to actionable insights?
Very often. I mean, I like to use the metaphor of a pilot in a cockpit. You go into a commercial airline and there are all these buttons, and commercial pilots go through years and years of training to understand what they all mean. But generally, the metaphor I use, and right or wrong, because there might be a pilot here in your audience, but generally they're looking at just a handful of things, the critical things that they need to look at in that moment, right? Their altitude, their speed, just a couple of things. And if any of those things are off, the pilot knows that they need to take action. And all those 200-300 other little lights that are in the cockpit, they're not saying anything. But when the pilot needs to take action around one of them, it lights up and it calls attention to it. Well, here's a thing that I need you to go look at. And so when an organization has massive amounts of data, right? And we're talking, companies have grown out of gigabytes and terabytes. They're in the petabyte ranges, just massive amounts of data. Being able to focus on the ones in the moment that tell you what it is you need to do. If all the other things are looking good, if in my business, the labor schedules look good, if the guest forecast is accurate, if the orders and the inventory I have to serve guests between now and my next order are all accurate, why should a manager have to go and look at that to validate that they're all like that? They should be like those little light bulbs in the cockpit. They should be off. They shouldn't be calling attention to go look at those things. And that should free people's time up to focus on those 2 or 3 things that matter in the moment.
So with huge data sets like that, you've probably got alert systems set up. Hey, as long as the values are within this range, we're good.
Yeah.
They slip one way or the other, fire off an alarm and let somebody know.
4 things that matter when they fall outside of control limits. And then the other thing is, it doesn't matter if that particular metric or KPI, well, it wouldn't be a KPI, but that particular indicator of your business or measure of your business is out of whack. Because could be many things, but the 2 key ones that I sort of say is, can you do anything about it right now? No. Okay. Well, don't worry about it. Focus on the ones you can do something about. And then secondly, the other one is, does it matter? Yes, it's out of whack. It's out of control limits, or it's going in a particular direction, but does it have any impact on the ones that matter? Is it going to affect the guest experience today? Is food not going to come out and be absolutely picture perfect and taste absolutely amazing. All those things. Is the employee experience going to be affected? None of those things, right? Our payment's going to be in any way compromised. Those are the things that matter. So there's so much data that companies are looking at. And one of the things that a good data analytics organization, whether it's in the business, because I've run several, actually most of the ones I've run lived in the business, was sort of finding the things that mattered to the business and then structuring actionable insights around them. What are the things that you can do or should be doing ahead of time or in the moment, and then ignore the rest, because you can't look at 90 petabytes of data.
So does it matter? Does it matter? And can we do anything about it? Those are the two questions.
Maybe next week you can change your order size, but this week you can't.
Yeah. All right, let's shift gears for a moment. Shawn, would be curious to hear about a serious challenge that you've overcome. Personal, professional, maybe a combination of the two. What did you learn going through that, and how did you get through it?
Yeah, I'd say, a personal challenge. Sort of mid-career, sort of at the manager level, I applied for a position I was really keen on getting. And I have to say, this is, one of the things that I really took in my career from that, which is, what do great leaders do? And I didn't get the position, and I was really bummed out. It was a point in my career where I had either been sort of like brought into new positions because there was a challenge that somebody saw. Hey, I don't know what this looks like, but I know Shawn can, figure it out. Or I applied for a position and I got it. And so this was like a career rejection where I had to, not take it personally. And the growth there was, I have to say, from the hiring leader, very constructive. It's like, look, Shawn, I have no doubt that you have the aptitude, but you have an opportunity to learn a few things. And I took that down, and there were a spanned between hard skills and soft skills as well. And I really took those to heart in a way that I said, you know what, I'm going to take those as a challenge. And I tell this story not because it was obvious, not because it's obvious to me now, but because that hiring leader told this story in a meeting once afterwards, because 3 years later, I was working for him. The person who got the position left. And in that time, I took it upon myself. I'm going to go learn these things. So I volunteered. I went to other leaders in the organization that were managing, things that I got in that feedback. So I could say, hey, look, I want to volunteer to be on a project here. I'll take that on as a stretch goal. Or I got with HR and I said, where can I go and learn how to do X or Y? And that person left after 3 years, and I applied for the position again, and I got it. And I got it within a couple of days because that hiring leader knew that I'd acquired those skills, and it was like a slam dunk. It wasn't easy. It was hard to go about finding out how to learn these particular things. These kinds of things, sometimes when it comes to work experience, are not easy to come by. How are you going to go and find work experience in a particular area if you don't have that job? I know entry level people deal with that very often. This is an entry level job, but you need 2 years experience. That doesn't make sense. But I figured out a way how to navigate it. And then in a meeting, a couple of weeks into the job, he told that story. I said, hey guys, and I think it was, to doing around performance review time. Here's an example. And he used me as an example of how to grow and develop yourself. And I was, I'm pretty humble. And I said, I didn't even see myself in that regard, but that makes sense. And So yeah, my advice here is, that kind of rejection is hard sometimes. But a hiring leader has a responsibility to the person who's the most talented to bring them on, and a responsibility to the organization to bring the most talented or the right talent for or fit for the role. I very often tell my leaders, hire for aptitude, hire someone more junior and help them grow and develop because of that experience. And very often I get leaders who come back after a while and say, Shawn, that was a great decision. Hiring someone more junior, but with a high aptitude. They bring in fresh perspective and so on. So that was hard, but really served me well.
So the hiring manager told you some of these things that you needed to learn.
Yeah.
Hats off to you for being receptive to that, because it's a crushing moment, right? You've been on this trajectory, like you've had success in your career, and now it kind of feels like a punch to the stomach that somebody says, I'm not ready for this thing I really wanted. You could have just been angry. You could have left. You could have sort of turtled up in your shell. So he or she gives you these things that you need to work on. Did they also kind of coach you as to how to learn those skills, or was this sort of like on you and you kind of got your hands dirty trying to figure out, how do I do that?
I no, there wasn't any guidance there. Feedback is a gift, I like to say. So I got the feedback. That was the gift. The how, that I would say to anyone listening, that gift has already been given to you. Your gaps in terms of that position that you aspire to has been shared with you explicitly. And this is why I would say to anyone, and this is why I take the time to mentor people or find mentors for my team members, because mentors also help give perspectives that are different to mine, to help people look at things from a different way, look at things differently than how I might look at it. And so you're getting all these angles. And so when I mentor someone and I say, if you have a performance review and it seems less than, your rating, for example, seems less than what you think you should have gotten, but the feedback isn't strong, open yourself up to that feedback, to being uncomfortable with hearing where your gaps are. Not that you don't have gaps in terms of the competency to do your current role. If you're a meets expectation, that means you're not just showing up to work and, thank you for coming to work today. I mean, you're working hard. I mean, people work hard, and that's okay. Meets expectations. If you're working hard every day and you're working smart and you're bringing value, a meets expectation is okay. But because there are higher ratings, there's more that you can be doing. And that hiring leader is telling you that. And I would say to not hiring leaders, I would say to leaders in performance reviews, you've got to give people actionable feedback, even if there are meets expectations. Here are all the things that you did great. You've set these objectives, you met them. In some cases, you exceeded them. But where's the what else? So if you're not getting it from your leader, feel comfortable asking and be okay with the feedback that they're going to give you on the things that you can learn and do better, because that's a gift.
That's how you grow.
They're telling you what you need to do to, a year from now, be in a position to get a higher rating, be in a position to get a new role. And if they don't, it's okay if they don't tell you how to go about it, but then be okay asking about that too. This hiring leader, I'm sure if I asked them to mentor me, they could have, but I got that feedback and I took it as an opportunity, as a gift. And then I went and navigated the how I closed that gap. And, sometimes people aren't self-starters like that, and that's okay. It's okay to ask. Ask for the feedback, ask how to go about closing it, ask if you can have resources, ask if your leader will connect you with a mentor. what's the worst that could happen?
Be open to feedback, ask for it, seek it out, use that as ways to improve yourself
You're
and to grow.
demonstrating your curiosity. You're demonstrating your commitment to growth. Good leaders will recognize that and see it for the value that it has to them and their organization.
Shawn, I've just got one more question for you, but
Yeah.
before I ask it, I want to do two things. First of all, everyone listening today, I will invite you to hit the like, follow, share, or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so that you can continue to get more great interviews like we've had today with Shawn Harrs. Shawn, I also want to let people know the best way to either continue following your story or to get in touch with you directly. What would that be?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. My name is right here in the window. There's only one of my spelling on LinkedIn. Connect with me, follow me. If there's an opportunity for us to do something together, obviously as a IT leader, I get a lot of sales reach outs. But if someone's here in your audience really looking for insight into their career, into how they develop themselves, or they're facing a situation where they can't make a decision about a career path or the decision on a technology that I might have some insights on. I have a big peer network of CIOs I can get an answer to. I'm happy to have people connect and reach out.
That's very generous of you. So last question for you today, Shawn, and we may have already touched on this, but as you look to the future, what are the changes in this industry that you're most excited about diving into?
Well, I think about the hospitality industry, the industry I'm in, and the excitement that I have around the evolving landscape of restaurants. I mean, even, restaurants that have been around for as long as us, they continue to evolve too. I mean, you think of some of the big names that have always been around, they still have their marquee product in the marketplace. I don't think some of those will ever go away. That coffee shop that you love that has grown into a worldwide chain is still going to have a great cup of black coffee available to you. But around it, the expectations and needs and wants of customers is going to evolve. So the tastes of customers is going to evolve. And that's something I'm very excited about. I'm sure there are a lot of foodies in your audience here. In the technology space, the advent of the capabilities of AI, and every day you're turning the news on, and the big leaders in AI are introducing models that they just trained that are twice as good as the ones that they introduced yesterday. So, we used to hear about Moore's law and timeframes of multiplication being measured in years, coming down into double-digit months and so on. The evolution of the capability of AI is growing in hours and minutes now. And so, yes, it's a buzzword, but it's real. Some of the capabilities I'm seeing of what intelligent agents can do to help with marketing and customer experience. I was at a hotel last week, and I called customer service in the evening, and normally you get someone at the front desk, in the evening, customer service desk is closed. This was an AI agent. And I could kind of tell the audio and the speech and so on was pretty good, but it was 98% there. The thing that stood out for me, I said, okay, let's see how this goes. And so I stutter a little bit on purpose. I change my question in the middle. I say, actually, and then I switch it to a different question. I'm trying to stump it. There's a concept in the computing world around when a human can't determine the difference between interacting with technology versus another
Turing test, yeah.
And the Turing test, right? And I tried to Turing test this thing, and boy, did I'll say it was a she. Boy, did the AI nail it!
Wow.
Yeah. I kind of whispered at one point, hit the nail on the head, answered every question, followed up. Is there anything else I can help with? I mean, those experiences, 5-10 years ago, we were introducing these chatbots on websites, and they were just like a very basic decision tree. To have any random question that I could think of be posed that was relevant to the hotel, and switch it up like that and get all those questions right. In my industry, ordering at a drive-through is AI. Calling a contact center to put in a phone order includes AI. I mean, these are very sophisticated capabilities that will really change experiences for customers. You want to get information on your healthcare or anything. You think of your industry, there are use cases that are going to, you have a meeting with lawyers from two different companies, and as soon as the meeting is done, there's a draft contract immediately available that is based on all of the discussion, bringing together all the different types of terms and conditions that these companies usually use for. And when you think of the days and weeks that would normally take an attorney to draft and the back and forth, it's pretty remarkable. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, likewise. We've come a long way in a short time, and the next several months to couple of years, it's going to be fun to see how things evolve. Well, Shawn, I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Anthony, it's been a pleasure, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity to share it.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.